Life. It seems like from the time we are born, there's only one course. Grow up, grow old, and die. Olam HaMiddot, a guide to understanding and refining our character. Hi everyone, Devorah Esther here, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of Olam HaMiddot. This book has really not disappointed. I am just so excited. I mean, we're in a parsha in which we're talking about Yaakov Avinu. It says that he went to, in other words, like a yeshivot, and it seems like he went twice in his life. And the sages come down to tell us that he went once to learn how to become a Jew. And the second time he went in, it was to learn how to survive as a Jew. And I have to tell you that this year, like many other years, but this year in particular, I think the more that you go around the block in life, things take on new meanings and you see things with different eyes. And this year in particular has been that year for me. And that statement, learning how to live as a Jew and learning how to survive as a Jew, that has really taken on a new meaning for me. And so I am always excited when I am so fortunate and really it's just a blessing from Hashem to have given me another sage to come and learn from. And I feel like this sefer, Olam HaMiddot, is exactly that. It's exactly what I need to maneuver around in today's world with everything that's going on. So if you want to hear more about that, please stay tuned. And I would please humbly ask that you would hit the subscribe button and you can then be notified of upcoming episodes. But this is going to be number 3 of a great section, which really was hard hitting. And I wanted to break it up because I felt like you really need to take it in. I think sometimes we hear something really big and it gets lost in the rest of this year. And I have a feeling this book is going to have a lot of that. But I didn't want to lose what was being told to us because this is a problem. I know that I've encountered this in my life, and I know a lot of people are going through this, where we tend to judge people on all the wrong things. And the thing is that we know we shouldn't be judging them. We know. We've heard countless rabbis say, just because someone looks religious. And this book was great because this one was saying, they were even talking about non-Jews. Just because someone looks like they have, the right clothes or they have the good manners, don't assume that is not to be taken as the same thing as having good midot, their character trait. And we've heard some stories, which, again, we've heard these stories time after time. And we keep thinking that we will know better when it happens to us. But, behold, we don't. We end up in the same position and sometimes worse. And then we kick ourselves because we did have this information and we didn't act on it. So we're going to pick up again. We're going to finish off this particular chapter. And it says about beyond human intellect. And it says that the Torah obligates a level of purity of midot that is beyond what human intellect would imagine. For instance, if a person's friend would mistreat him and degrade him, would we think that the person has to act kindly toward his friend? Of course not. But the Torah commands us in Vayikra 19:18 not to take revenge or even to bear a grudge. As the sefer Chachinuk in Mitzvah 242 writes, we are barred from bearing a grudge in our hearts over a wrong perpetrated against us by another Jew. Even if we resolve in our hearts not to retaliate, we are nevertheless barred from recalling his sin in our heart. Would the human mind ever think to obligate this? And of course, like if anybody who does the nighttime prayer, the Kriyat Shema, we say this really in the opening, that we forgive every Jew and we want no man to be punished because of us. But that's easier said than done, right? Because when we are feeling the heat of the anger that's simmering inside, sometimes it feels like it's very hard to control. Take it from this spicy Latina. I've worked very hard, with the help of the sages and Hashem, that please, help me when I'm feeling this little rage that's starting to build up. So it says, would the human mind ever think to obligate this? We find another example of the purity of Midot expected by the Torah in the Gemara in Kedushin 20a. And the Torah states regarding the Eved Ivri, which is the Jewish slave, it is good for him to be with you. And the Chazal expound to this to mean that the Eved Ivri should be with you in your food and your drink. You should not eat bread made of fine flour while he eats bread made of coarse flour. You should not drink aged wine while he drinks new wine. And you should not sleep on soft bedding while he sleeps on straw. And Chazal conclude that one who acquires an Eved Ivri acquires a master for himself. Now, hold tight, because this is like, they're getting ready to blow your mind. Why is the Eved Ivri called a master? Now, remember, the Eved Ivri literally translates to the Jewish slave, right? So it says, so why is the Eved Ivri called a master rather than the equal? Tosafos answers, based on the Yerushalmi, that if the master has only one pillow, he may not sleep on it for himself, for then he is not fulfilling the principle of, for it is good for him with you. To not sleep on the pillow and not to give it to Eved Ivri would be callous. And the Midah of Sadan, and therefore, only solution is to give the only pillow to Eved Ivri. In the sense he becomes like the master. We see here once again the Torah's expectation of lofty character, right? Furthermore, a person is obligated to emulate his creator, as the Chazal teach in Shabbos 133b. Just as he is gracious and compassionate, so should you be gracious and compassionate. And the Tomar Devorah states in chapter 1 that the midah of who is God like you refers to Hashem's forbearance, for he tolerates those who disgrace him to an extent that he defies human understanding. Now that is true, right? Because Hashem, now if you think about it, let's just put it simply. I mean, how many times do we not do what we're supposed to do, which is really an insult to Hashem? But even go further than that, for those who outright spit on the Torah and its ways, and yet Hashem wakes them up every morning, gives them life, gives them breath, gives them health and parnasa. That is really something to aspire to. And so as not a moment passes in a person's life in which the person is not sustained by Hashem's kindness, meaning that even at a moment when a person is sinning against Hashem, Hashem nevertheless continues to provide him with life and the ability to move his limbs. Didn't I just say this? Similarly, says the Tomar Devorah, a person must work on his midot to the point that he reaches a level at which he can do good to another person, even at the same moment that the person is causing him distress. That is a high and lofty level, and that takes time. And few people can get to that level. And it says another powerful illustration is to be found in Bava Metzia in 32b, where the Gemara challenges the notion that the requirement to prevent animals from suffering is from Torah law and not rabbinic. The basis of the Gemara's challenge is the statement in the Bereisha that the obligation to load the animal of one's enemy supersedes the obligation to unload the fallen animal of one's friend, for helping one's enemy requires a person to subdue his evil inclination. Because it's true. When you see somebody who's been tormenting you, and you see him now in a time of need, you almost want to rejoice, right? You want to rejoice at his misfortune. That's what you get. You had it coming to you. And what the Torah is saying, it takes even bigger. It's really your Yetzer Hara that you are going to be subduing when you're helping him. That is a high, high level. And I pray Bezrat Hashem will all get there. So it says, the Gemara reasons that if the Sar Balei Chaim were a Torah law, then the person would certainly be required to unload the collapsed animal first. But then the Gemara rejects that the reasoning on the grounds that even if the Torah itself requires us to prevent animals from suffering, it is nevertheless preferable for a person to overcome his evil inclination. This is mind-boggling for human intellect, would dictate that loyalty to one's friend should take precedence over helping one's enemy, especially when helping the friend involves alleviating the suffering of his animal. Furthermore, we are discussing a case in which a person is not wronging his enemy in any way. And if the enemy would be the only one there, he would certainly help him despite his misgivings. Still, the Gemara states that the person is required to help his enemy in order to subdue his Yetzer Hara. That is because a person is obligated to perfect his inner character and act against his nature so that he purifies his midot to the utmost. And this we see time and time again with Hashem. A person should aspire to transcend human limitation and reach the level of angels, as the verse states, for the lips of the Kohen should safeguard knowledge, and people should seek teaching from his mouth. For he is an agent of Hashem, master of legions. This is brought down in Malachi 2:7. From here, Chazal derive that if a Rav resembles an angel of Hashem, people should seek to learn Torah from his mouth, and if he does not, they should not. And this is brought down in Hagigah 15b. So it says a person is shaped by his actions. This is going to be the last subsection here. So it says, although, as we have explained, rectifying one's midot is an internal matter, external actions definitely affect a person's inner character. And the sefer Hachinuk in Mitzvah 16 writes that a person's actions shape who he is, for the person's heart is drawn after his actions. And we've heard this, as a man thinks, so he does. For instance, if a person is jealous of another person, he should push himself to praise that individual both in his presence and in his absence. For in that way, he trains himself not to be jealous, neither of his friend or nor anyone else. Similarly, if a person is stingy and finds it difficult to give to others, he should force himself to give, for that will enable him to acquire the trait of generosity. This is what the above Gemara means when it says that a person should help his enemy rather than his friend, in order to subdue his Yetzirah. By helping his enemy rather than allowing him to himself to be drawn after the feelings of enmity in his heart, he is training himself not to hate his enemy. But if he does not help his enemy, even though he may be justified, his actions serve to reinforce his feelings of enmity. Therefore, in any situation in which we find ourselves drawn either to good or to evil, the action we take will determine the direction in which our hearts move. If we overcome our evil inclination and do what is right and proper, that influences our heart for the good, and vice versa, Chas v'shalom. After a number of external good deeds, the person's heart will be filled with the proper emotion, for one's heart is drawn after his actions. This is a person's avoda, the act against his nature in order to break his midot and create for himself a new nature. Regarding the Mishnah statement, and everything depends on the abundance of good deeds, as brought down in Avot 3:15, the Rambam writes that a person does not attain great levels according to the magnitude of his good deeds, but rather according to the quantity of his good deeds. So it says that is a person repeating good deeds many times causes a person to firmly make those actions part of himself. And the Rambam gives the example of two people who give 1,000 gold coins to charity, and one person gives the entire donation at once and to a single pauper, and does not give anything to any other pauper, while the second one donates 1 gold coin 1,000 times. The person does not internalize the trait of generosity, was benevolent, acting nearly as much as the second person who acted benevolently 1,000 times. And the second person acquired the trait of generosity in a powerful way through his repeated actions, while the first person's heart was roused to generosity only once, albeit in a major way, and therefore will not acquire that midot. So now that concludes this chapter, but I want to take a step back, and I just want to clarify some things too. So going back to this, doing good to your enemy. Now, this is where we really need Hashem's help and discernment and guidance from our Ravs, right? Because you don't want to be helping an enemy to Chas v'shalom harm another person, or to put yourself in a way that, in harm's way, whether it's emotionally or spiritually. We'd have to have discernment on that. So I want us to be clear, about, the saying, I'm going to say it again, know when to hold them, know when to fold them. We have to know when to apply these principles. Now, with that last statement of giving the charity once and 1,000 times, this is exactly what this last portion of the, the sefer is talking about, this chapter, in that, when you give, okay, so you gave $1,000 to one person, that was great, it was a one-time thing. But when you give 1,000 times, it does something to you because it puts you into a habit. And science has proved this, right? Like when we do something, is it 28 to 30 days, it becomes a habit to us. So when you are giving time and time again, it doesn't matter the amount. The point is that you get yourself accustomed to giving, and then the amount starts to increase because it's just part of your nature. So these are very powerful things. I'm just excited. I'm looking forward to what the sefer has to bring. I pray that it will help me on my personal journey on learning how to survive as a Jew in this world. It's one thing to learn how to be a Jew, which I think that the fact that you are just born Jewish, you do not know what to do by osmosis. You actually you have to know what is the purpose of a Jew, which I think that is lost on a lot of Jewish people in this day and age. They just don't know what the purpose of a Jew is. And if you ask somebody, they probably be perplexed in their answer. It's a lot more than what you think. And then there becomes surviving in this world, which I know this world is very big on everyone being inclusive, but I hate to break it to you, Jews are not included in that, and that's the mandate from Hashem, that's coming from the Torah. We are separate for a separate reason. That doesn't make us better than anyone else, it just makes us different. And I think that difference should be embraced. And I've always been perplexed why Jews feel this need to want to blend in with the Goyim. The Goyim are looking to you for a reason. And those that come to you with anti-Semitism, they know that you have something, which is the reason why they're trying to take it from you, or they're trying to convince you that it's not worth, what you have is not worth anything. But don't be fooled by that. There have been countless generations throughout the centuries who have come against the Jewish nation for one reason or another. And it's because they know that we are different and we have something different. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I actually think that's a good thing, right? If Hashem made it that way, it's a good thing. But I really am still perplexed at this need to want to run away from that. And I think there's a bigger issue going on internally that each and every one of us has to evaluate. And that goes down to identity. So I'm hoping with Hashem's help that we will be able to start exploring this Jewish identity and what that means. Because I think that when you understand who you are, then you can start to set up the parameters and function and maneuver in a way that helps you to be successful in this life. But as far as this life and as far as this episode, that's it for today. And I hope we'll all be together again soon. Bezrat Hashem. If you've enjoyed this video or know someone who would, please share it. Sikul mitzvot. If you'd like to be notified of upcoming episodes, click subscribe to be notified.